Hello and good evening everybody, and welcome back once again for another video of DIY investing. For today's video, we're going to be diving in and taking a look at an in-depth technical analysis approach to XRP and my reasoning why I actually believe that XRP is headed for $28. Now, I've updated you guys previously and talked very highly of XRP in times past, and that is because I'm actually very confident in what's coming for XRP and the overall crypto market in general. XRP has been one of the leading cryptocurrencies for the last 6 years in running. It's held a pretty dominant approach inside of the market cap by maintaining a top 5 status over the last 6 years, which is why I believe it's going to be a major catalyst for the rest of the cryptocurrency market into this next bull run. If you're new and just finding this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more content like the one provided for you here. You guys have been really killing it recently with the likes, comments, and subscribing to this channel. My Discord's been growing very quickly as well, so thank you guys so much for all of the support. It's really awesome to see how quickly this channel is actually growing, especially over the last few months. I remember, like I've said in times past, it took me seriously like a year to get 100 subs, and then from that point we've averaged about 100 subs every single month, and it only continues to exponentially grow from here. So thank you all so much for the support. It really does mean a lot to me. With all that being said, if you guys are looking for signals or you want to join a community that you can trust, make sure you click the invitation link in the description of this video, and there you're going to get access to my Discord server. Alright guys, we got a lot of things to talk about, so let's get right into the video today. So to start off this video, we are going to be looking at some updated technical analysis inside of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the driver of the value inside of the cryptocurrency market. So for today, not much has really changed from my last update. I wanted to give you guys a few different levels and then talk about my overall trading plan with Bitcoin. Now, in my last video, I talked about the fact that I would expect to see Bitcoin to actually continue on in this bear cycle and actually go a little bit lower still. Now, a lot of you guys can be really fearful about that. I know that most people aren't expecting Bitcoin to go for another low, but with the current price action that we've been seeing over the last few weeks, it's more apparent to me that based off of price action alone, it appears to me that we are still very much bearish, and this bear trend is still very much in play. So with that being said, let's actually dive in and talk about my overall analysis with Bitcoin. Now, what you're going to see from taking a look at this chart is we have these three really light green lines, and these are actually my 3 entries in which I accumulated this dip. Now, my first entry was 9100, my second entry was 8350, and my third entry was 76. And so we got filled on all 3 of these entries with an average buy-in price of about 83.50. Now, currently we're sitting at a bit of a loss, and that's okay because I've told you guys in times past that all of these entries were for my long-term bags, and so I'm just holding these for the next couple years to follow. So I'm really not worried about the potential of them being underwater, because based off my last video, I'm expecting these 3 bags to be underwater about 25%. Now, with all that being said, guys, I wanted to talk to you guys about my updated approach with kind of what I'm thinking. And so let's dive right in here and show you guys what I'm expecting to see. Now, what we're at right now is still just kind of finishing out this retrace. Now, by taking a look at this retrace, we are really at this big cluster support that we saw right in here, and we're kind of in the average of that. Maybe we drop down a little bit further, but I wouldn't expect it to be too much lower. Maybe down to about 78 to 8K, right around that range. And then I am expecting to see us bounce from there. Now, once we do bounce, there's a couple areas that I'm watching. This $8,350 level is one area that I'm going to watch, but then also about 8,800 down to about 8,600, this red box. This is actually where I would expect us to see major resistance before continuing on in this bear cycle. Now, something that I think we could expect to see is we retrace a little bit further. Maybe we come back down to the $7,800 level, and then we get a dead cat bounce, and it takes us into this resistance. It might be a little bit lower than this, and it could even go all the way up to about 9K. If it went up to 9K, then I would start to question that this bear trend is still actually going to play out how I think it will, because I am expecting this dead cat bounce to be met with strong resistance and then us to continue back down in this retrace. So something I would kind of expect to see, maybe we drop back down to here, and then we dead cat bounce back up to about the $8,800 level before continuing on in this bearish cycle back down. And so this is what I'm going to be watching for inside of Bitcoin. Now, with that being said, guys, I don't expect that this retrace is going to be very long. I would expect it to be very sudden when we do start to retrace, similar to what we saw back up here at about 10,500. We were hugging that resistance line before finally we had a major sell-off of about 25%. And that's kind of what I would expect to see here. Maybe we get a short-term dead cat bounce back up into this resistance, but I would expect that final impulse to happen very quickly. Now that final impulse, in theory, is going to take us back down to this 6K support floor. Now the 6K support floor, it's kind of your best guess as far as where the bottom could be. My guess is it's going to be anywhere from about 6,600 all the way down to about 6K. Right around that range, so about a $600 difference between the two. But it's really just in this range that I'm watching for. And I told you guys in times past that if we drop back down to this level, I'm just going to be throwing whatever extra cash I have at the market. And so I'm really not too worried about a specific entry necessarily. I am watching for this $6,300 level because I feel like that's probably the most averaged location for the lows of this 6K support floor. So 63 would be my primary target, I would have to say. But we could drop a little bit lower and we could actually maintain support a little bit higher. That's why I'm not going to get married to one specific number target. I'm just going to be deploying cash if we do in fact break below this $7,600 level. Because remember guys, my last entry was at 76. So if we start selling off below that level, I'm just going to be deploying any extra cash that I can, and I'm just going to accumulate with however low the market's going to give me. Whatever opportunity that is, I'm just going to be buying. So this is my trading plan. I wanted to quickly talk about a few levels that I'm watching. I wanted to share with you guys where I actually accumulated my bids and where I'm expecting price to actually fall once we do actually continue on in this bear cycle. Now with that being said, short term I am bullish. I think that it's more likely that we're going to get a dead cat bounce out of this retrace, because it's less likely that we're just going to continue to drop and just fall off, because that's usually not what happens inside of markets. Usually we have these sell-offs and then we'll have short-term bounces before the bear trend continues to play out. So that's what I'm going to be watching out for with Bitcoin. Now let's actually dive into the real nitty-gritty part of this video, and let's actually take a look at my updated technical analysis inside of Ripple. So here we are guys, taking a look at XRP. Now XRP to me is a no-brainer for being one of the better coins that you can actually invest in for this next upcoming market cycle, and my reasons for that is, like I stated at the first of the video, XRP has been a top 5 market cap coin for the last 6 years in running, and it really has maintained that dominance the entire time it's been in the market. Now XRP to me has been one of the most parabolic coins I've ever got the opportunity to trade. I actually made a lot of money off of XRP back in 2017, and I'm not necessarily an XRP maximalist. A lot of people will lead to believe that just because I have XRP hashtagged inside of my Twitter bio. But that's not accurate in the slightest. I really am not a maximalist of any kind. If I was, I'd say I was a Bitcoin maximalist. But really, I'm just an opportunist. I see opportunities inside of the market. And so for that, I take trading plans and build portfolios based around my analysis. And really what I've seen with XRP is one of the best performing altcoins since it's been around. On top of that, you actually have real institutions that are building upon the ecosystem of Ripple. And so it's for these reasons that I think that this one has an extreme case for institutional adoption in this next cycle, because I think that that's actually going to be very key for the longevity of these projects. I mean, with the last few cycles that we've had inside of these altcoins, they all pump at relatively the same times, but most of them completely fully retrace, and then they just go through these pump and dump cycles. And that's really the case for a lot of these altcoins. Now, the best altcoins are going to be the ones that continue to uptrend on a linear scale. And so it's for that reason that I'm watching Ripple, because I think that this one has a good case for the fundamental adoption. Now, if you're somebody that's watching these altcoins and you want to find the coins that are going to continue on for the next 5, maybe 10 years down the line, then the ones that are continuing to uptrend and make symmetrical market cycles are going to be the best bet for your investments. And so that's really my biggest reason for investing into Ripple. Now, XRP to me is just repeating the exact same market cycle as before, and I've actually talked about that plenty of times in past videos, and so it's for that I figured today we're going to dive in, and I'm going to give you guys my most updated approach with XRP. And we're going to actually dive in, show you guys the last market cycle, compare it to the current market cycle, and then I'm going to give you guys 3 price targets that I am going to be taking profits on when XRP actually goes into price discovery. So let's dive into a little bit of a shorter time frame. Let's take it to a daily time scale, zoom out a little bit. Now, to start off this, we're going to be taking a look at the very first market cycle that we ever had inside of XRP. Now, XRP back in the early days, I got into Bitcoin, it would have been about right here, right before we had our first breakout and really that big trend reversal inside of the altcoins. That's when I bought my first Bitcoin and I first started learning about how to trade in these markets. And it was a very profitable time for me because I happened to get in right before that 2017 bull run, and I was able to really learn a lot in that time. Now, one of my favorite parts of trading has always been market cycle analysis. And market cycle analysis has always been super profitable for me because it allows me to kind of see the emotions inside of the market. Now, if you guys do not understand this, something to keep a note of right now, markets only behave through human emotion. And the reason they move at all is because humans are trading them. Now, humans are creatures of emotion. And so it's for these emotions that we actually see what these market cycles look like. And so with that being said, cryptocurrency is one of the most emotional market cycles that we're ever going to see. And it's really the most emotional cycles that I think have ever existed up to this point. Now, the reason for that is there's just not a lot of money involved with these markets. And so you have people that have lots of money, you have average traders like me or you, and we're all just kind of investing blindly into these markets all through speculation. So the cycles can be very, very hyped, and then the retraces and the bear cycles can be very deadly. You can oftentimes lose your entire ass trading these things, and that's why it's very emotional. There's a lot of emotions involved. I know for speaking for myself in times past, I've had so many struggles trying to learn how to invest in these markets profitably because of the fact I had to just mitigate all of my emotions. And I'd say it took me about 2.5 years before I could consistently profit inside of this market, and 2.5 years before I actually understood what I was doing entirely. And now I've been here for about 3.5 years, working on my 4th year, and I can say that the emotions are still there, but I've just learned how to completely minimize them for my trading plan. Because guys, ever since I first got into crypto, I've had 100% of my net worth tied to the value of these cryptocurrencies. And so for that, it was very emotional for the first 2 years of doing this. Very, very emotional. I remember riding this trend in 2017. Just an emotional time in general. And it was because of these emotions that I lost a lot of money, and it was because I actually got in early that I was able to still make a lot of money. And so I want to make this channel to really just help mentor you guys through this cycle, because cryptocurrency is something like we've never seen before. You can make life-changing money, but you can also lose your entire ass by investing in the wrong projects and just doing things that aren't necessarily good for investment purposes. So today we're going to be diving into taking a look at XRP. Now let's look at the cycle in times past and see kind of how it applies to today. Now what we saw was at the terminal end of our correction, we had our capitulation, and this is really what started our impulse. We have our 1, we have our 3, and our 5 waves back up. For you guys that do not know Elliott waves, this is just the first impulse that we experienced, and we had 3 big pumps in that process. Now eventually we found the top of that, and then we started our bear trend. Now, a bearish trend is always met with descending resistance, and that's what's indicated by this red trend line. In a bear market, you're going to be downtrending, and so we're going to be making lower lows and lower highs. And that's basically what happened the entire way back down here. We had 1, 2, 3, you could count this as 4. We've had about 4 or 5 different reactions to this descending resistance, and we were rejected all 4 times. And so for that, that shows a very strong bearish trend. Now, with this market cycle, you're going to have these long, slow, drawn-out retraces, and then finally what ends up happening is you have a breakout of that trend. Now, once the descending resistance has been broken out of, aka meaning price has broken out and pierced outside of this descending resistance, that shows the trend has actually reversed, and we're now in a new bullish cycle. Now keep in mind, guys, there's multiple different trend lines within a trend, and so that's why it's really important to zoom out and see the big picture. That's why I like to trade these big picture market cycles, is because once I know that a descending resistance has been broken on a daily, weekly time frame, I know that that trend is actually reversed and we're about to start a new bull cycle. Because really my analysis is through investing. I do less day trading. I really wait for the day trading to happen when all of the markets are going parabolic, because that's really the most profitable time that you can day trade. Day trading can be very profitable, but if you aren't really proficient at it, you're not going to be very successful, and it's honestly a good way to lose a lot of money. And so for me, I like to maximize the biggest majority of the trend, and when you do that, you're more likely to profit, and you're less likely to be so attached to the emotional psychology that happens inside of investing in any kind of market, especially one as volatile as crypto. Now, what we saw here was our parabolic rise. we topped out of that, we started our bear trend, we rejected off of this bearish trend many different times before finally we ended up actually getting that trend reversal. Now before the trend reversal, we have a few early signs that the trend is about to change. What we see here is after we rejected off of this trend line the first time, we had an immediate down move, right? And then we buy back into that, and then another down move, and it was very sudden that it happened. Now right here is where it starts to change. Right here we have a reaction and we fall back down, but we're getting closer and closer and hugging tighter and tighter to this resistance. That's usually a key indication that this is coiled for long enough, the sellers are dying out, and the buyers are actually going to reverse the trend. And that's exactly what happened. Right here we see a pretty stereotypical rounded bottom formation where we can see the degree of trend changing and shifting very violently. Right here it was a sharp stab. We can see that it starts to lessen right here. And then right here we're actually rounding out and making a higher high for that first time. And what we also generally tend to see before a breakout is you want to see volume breakouts as well. Now we had our first volume breakout about right here, and this would have been our first impulse from the very lowest point that we saw in that market cycle. And so this was our first breakout. We still were trending below descending resistance, which wasn't really a clear indication that the trend had reversed quite yet, and I wouldn't have been buying in this time. Now we can see that we had a little bit more volume come in here before finally at this impulse into resistance right here, we saw the most volume. I mean, from the entire impulse up, the volume that came in right below resistance at this rejection was significantly greater than the cycle high that we saw back here, which generally speaking is always a key indication that that's a good time to start investing. Now, not always, but one of the early indications that I'll take even before a trend has fully reversed is I want to see volume, because a rule that I can tell you guys right now, volume precedes price. And so if you start to see a ton of new volume come in when we're at low support levels, generally speaking, that's usually a key indication that the trend is about to reverse. And that's basically what we saw. Now, even though we didn't break out of the descending resistance and we fell back down to support, we still had this nice volume coming in, which tells us that smart money is actively accumulating. Until finally price catches up, we break out, and then we have another big volume breakout, and this volume breakout's about double the size of this one that we saw here, which is significantly higher than any of the previous volume. So volume precedes price, guys. Now, even though we broke out of this trend, something that happened and something that tends to happen inside of markets is after the breakout, oftentimes we'll continue to impulse into that cycle high and go into price discovery, but other times we have an opposite approach where we break out of descending resistance and the trend changes, but we come back down to retest as support. And that's exactly what we saw right here. We broke out of this descending resistance, we had a lot of new volume that came in, except we started retracing back down. And this is okay. This is really what I've called a spring-loaded breakout, and it's really where prices break out, the trend is reversed, but we have to just come back down and retest that support one final time as confirmation before the market truly explodes. We get that spring-loaded effect, and we break out into new price discovery. And this is the old cycle, guys. And I wanted to share this with you because the current cycle is playing out almost identically to times past. Now, I really wish I would have bought more Ripple back down in here and held it throughout that entire 2017 bull run. I didn't, and that's fine. But the thing is, guys, we're getting another opportunity to do the exact same thing. And so that's why I wanted to update you guys with this analysis. I've talked about this analysis in times past, but I've never given you an exact in-depth approach as to why I think this and really the patterns and similarities that I'm seeing inside of this. And so that's what this video is about. I wanted to help guide you guys so that you know exactly why my reasonings are for investing so much into XRP in this time. Now, this really is what sends us into that new price discovery. The trend reversed here. We sold off for one more low to retest that support. That was the spring-loaded bounce before we ended up impulsing into our new cycle. And that took us into price discovery. This was the massive bull run of 2017, where a lot of people made millions of dollars. You could have made so much money if you would have put $1,000 inside of XRP back here and just held till $3.80. But the good news is we're getting another opportunity. Let's drop it to a little bit of a bigger time frame, and let's see kind of what I'm looking at currently. Now, just like the last cycle, we have these three impulse waves. Now, based off of Elliott wave, this is just a 1, a 3, and a 5 wave impulse. If you don't trade Elliott waves, all you really need to know is that just this is an impulse, right? Now, after the impulse, we find our cycle high, and that's what starts our retrace. Now, this retrace, remember, starts a new bear trend, and we can see that this is indicated by this red trend line. And this is what's held us throughout the entirety of this bear market. Almost 2 years time frame, we've been trending below this resistance. And every time we react to this resistance, we get an immediate sell-off. We can see that from here. We had a sell-off about 40%. Right here, we had another sell-off. Right here and here, we sold off again until finally we end up getting more signs of accumulation. So let's come over here and dive into this. Now, just like the last cycle, guys, we reject off of this trend line multiple times. The first 2 rejections send us into a deep retrace until finally we find a low, we bounce out, and then that's really where we see our first volume breakout. Now, keep in mind, guys, this wasn't a ton of volume that came in right here, but it was significantly more than what we had been seeing at that point in this bear cycle. Now, we broke out of that point, but we were still trending below this descending resistance. And we actually ended up falling, but this entire time we were maintaining support right here. Now, this is where it starts to tie together really nicely with the last cycle. And if you guys remember, right before we ended up getting the breakout of this bearish trend, we started a rounded bottom formation. And that's roughly the exact same thing that we saw right here. We see that we find support here, we bounce out of that, and then we continue to trend higher, and we start to round out, right? And we're getting closer and closer and coiling tighter and tighter to this descending resistance before finally we end up getting that breakout. And even the volume lined up nicely. We had our first volume breakout here, we had another one right here, until finally price broke out of that descending resistance and the trend changed. Now, a lot of people were very bullish in this time after the trend reversal, and they expected further upside to come, only this is the XRP, and with XRP, for whatever reason in its cycle, once the bearish trend has been broken, it's more of a fake out. We break out, and then we fall back down to another drop, or new lows. And this is what we've seen up to this point. Now, the good news with this, and the reason why I'm still bullish even though we continue to fall lower, is look at all the new volume that's come in. Now, it's a much bigger average of volume than what we even saw here at the cycle high. The cycle high had a lot of impulsing volume and a lot of sell volume that came in, but this is much bigger of an averaged growth of like volume, and that is to me a much more bullish sign because it shows that there's a lot more strength inside of this market. Now, we've been selling off from that point, and that takes us to current valuations. We're currently valued at about 25 cents. My average entry was 28 cents, so I'm a little bit underwater, but I'm really not too worried about that because I am actually looking to add to my investment portfolio in XRP very soon. Now, I'm waiting for a little bit more confirmation. If we bounce right here, I am expecting, either way, if we bounce for the short term, I am expecting us to drop back down to about 20 cents. And so that's realistically my next target. But with that being said, guys, I'm really not trying to draw exact targets for you guys right now. I'm just showing you guys mapping out the market cycle similarities. Now, this takes us to current day valuations. We have much more average volume coming in here in this time. We have had a trend reversal. And really all we're doing right now is finding where the exact bottom is going to be for that spring-loaded breakout, because that's all this move is. All of this retracing and these new lows that we're experiencing right now are all just a fake out. 2 years from now, we're going to look back at this, and you guys are going to be wishing that you had invested more into XRP in this time. I remember I didn't know that much about trading or investing back when I first got into crypto, and so it was for that reason that I never really understood market cycles. But now, after being here for 3.5 years, I've really studied and dedicated a lot of my time to understanding the emotional psychology of market cycles, as well as just understanding how the symmetry works inside of market cycles. And I can say that based off of the symmetry of this cycle, I am expecting a very similar play out to begin inside of this market cycle that's going to send us into new price discovery. Now, what we see here is really we're just retracing back down. We're trying to find the bottom of that spring-loaded event before we actually start impulsing into new highs. Now, based off of the price action that we're seeing right now, if I drop this to a monthly time frame, and this has actually been something that I've been watching for a little while now, let's hide this. We can see by taking a look at my crosshair tool, monthly resistance is about right here. And you guys can see that indicated by my crosshair tool. We are currently trending below this monthly resistance, and we're selling off convincingly from that. In fact, our real first green candle came after we sold through this monthly support, And then from here, I would have liked to see us get another green candle that would reclaim that support, but we actually had a very convincing bearish engulfing, and this bearish candle is significantly bigger than the green one. And so that to me tells me that we're about to head for another low, but I don't think that that low is going to be very significant. Now, the worst case scenario for XRP as it stands right now is we fall to about 15 or 16 cents. And that's totally fine, guys. If that happens, I'm doing the same thing that I'm doing with Bitcoin. I'm just throwing cash into this market cycle because I don't expect it to last long. And in fact, if Bitcoin actually sells off back down to its 6K support floor, I would say that it's likely that we're going to drop to some of these low significance inside of this market cycle. At least 20 cents, but we have the probability of going all the way down to a 15 or 16 cents. And so this is kind of what I'm watching for inside of XRP right now. But overall, not much has changed with my trading plan. I've already been actively accumulating. I'm waiting for a little bit better of an opportunity to buy in. I've already accumulated at 26 cents, and so we're basically right at that original entry, so I don't really need to unload much more into my investments right now. I'm going to wait until we actually see further downside, or if we reclaimed that 30-cent support floor, then I actually would start investing a little bit more at that point, because that would have been a confirmed support and resistance flip, and that would be confirmation enough. Even though I didn't buy all the way back down at 25 cents when I could have, it's much more profitable to wait for confirmation in the trend change than it is to just start randomly buying. Now, with that being said, guys, that's kind of counterproductive to what I just told you guys about if we actually sold off below 20 cents, I would just be throwing any money I had in there and I wouldn't be worrying so much about price targets. And so there is a little bit of a leeway in my analysis moving forward with XRP. But I'm so confident in saying that I expect new upside to come inside of Ripple that, to be quite honest, I'm really not too worried about the short-term losses. I've already committed to this market 100%. Literally 100% of my net worth is tied to the value of cryptocurrencies. Not just one, not just two, but I have a few different bags that I'm holding. And it's for this reason that I'm willing to see short-term losses. And the short-term losses really have no effect on my emotional state, has no effect on my trading plan, because I'm confident in what is happening. Now, I could be totally wrong. I could lose all of my money off these investments, and that's totally fine. I've already come to that realization within myself. And so it's for that reason that I'm not worried about what is happening right now. I'm much more focused on 2 years down the line. Right now, I'm just focused on accumulating this bear trend before we do actually start that impulse, because when this thing impulses, guys, all of those great times to be buying are going to be left behind in the matter of weeks. And I can't stress that enough. And that's really what's going to happen. If you're not somebody that's willing to invest in the bear market and accumulate everybody else's fear, you're going to be stuck buying everybody else's bags that was accumulating everybody else's fear, because it's going to impulse quick. And when that happens, you're going to be stuck waiting on the sidelines, or you're going to be FOMOing into everybody else, and it's just not a time of profitability, and you're much more likely to lose out. Now, with that being said, guys, this is the updated analysis inside of XRP. As you can see, both cycles are almost the exact same. There's really no different. The only difference is the fact that this impulse was much larger, but even the time frames are about the same. I mean, from the cycle high that we saw back in the day to the very bottom, it was about 802 days, right approximately around there. And then what we've seen up to this point is about 680 days. So we're a little bit, we're about 120 days behind the last cycle, but that's totally fine, guys. No two cycles are going to be exactly the same. You got to remember that the last cycle accumulated and it took so long, and that was when Bitcoin really had, you know, a 3-year bear market. It was about 3 years before we ended up actually breaking out of that all-time high mark, whereas Bitcoin has impulsed very quickly from the point in which we bottomed at about 3,200, and then we went straight to 14K. And so the cycle has been different, and it's been a little bit quicker, but that doesn't really change the fact that the symmetry is the same, and it's really the symmetry of the market cycle that has me so bullish on XRP moving forward. Now, with all that being said, guys, this takes us to current day valuations at 25 cents. I am expecting one more low. I don't think that that low will last much longer. In fact, if you're looking at this this impulse that I have drawn here indicated by this black line, I don't actually think that it's going to round out like this. I would find it more likely that we actually have one of these events where we just stab down and then quickly impulse out of that. I don't think that we're going to really hold off for that long, and I would assume that roughly around the new year is when we're going to start to see these markets pick up. Because what I noticed, guys, is for whatever reason, the new year seems to be a very profitable time inside of crypto. Now, back in 2017, this was about the start of the new year, was about right here. And so it was around that turn of 2016 into 2017 that we had that brand new bull cycle. And then it was at the start of 2018 that we started retracing. And so we're coming very close to that new year, which would take us to about right here. And so I would expect that this new year into 2020 is going to be a very profitable time, and that's most likely where we're going to see that year-long bull market where everything goes up and you can make a ton of money in the process. And so this is what I'm going to be watching out for with XRP. Now let's actually dive into my price targets so that you guys know what I'm rocking with moving forward. Now my ultimate target inside of XRP is going to be $28. I think that that's very realistic to reach in this next cycle, just because of the fact we have accumulated for almost roughly the same amount of time. Now, one thing to keep a note of is the law of diminishing returns. Anytime a coin continues to impulse in its market cycles, the amount of return that you're going to get from each impulse is going to be less and less because it becomes more expensive. And so that's what's going to happen inside of XRP. I mean, if you would have bought way down in here, say you would have bought like right here and held to $3.80, you would have had almost 1,000x returns. But with this next cycle, even if you buy it, 20 cents, if it does end up going back down to that low significant and you hold the 28 bucks, that's going to be just over 100x. And so that's one thing that's going to differ between the two cycles is the fact the law of diminishing returns. And who knows, we might not even go all the way up to $28. Now, one thing I can say about XRP community, and it's no knock on them, it's just really uneducated analysts that are coming up with these price targets. But oftentimes what you see if you follow Twitter is you have these big XRP accounts that are just 100% XRP maximalists, and they unleash these insane price targets of $580, $100, $300, all of these crazy price targets. And to be completely honest, guys, I find that unlikely, very, very unlikely. I don't find it likely in the slightest that we're actually going to impulse that high, and it's much more reasonable to me to think that we'll actually stop at about the $20 to $30 range, somewhere right around there. Now my ultimate price target, my very highest, I think that we could go to like 48, 50 bucks, but I'm not even going to write that off as a possibility because all of my take profit zones are significantly less than that point. Now let's actually dive in and take a look at my other take profit zones. So my first take profit zone is going to be $9 right here. About right there. That's going to be my first take profit zone. I'm not going to sell until we hit $9. And then my next one is going to be at $15. So a little bit higher, right around there. And these are actually going to be my areas in which I start selling my XRP. Now for me, I'm a very big bullish trader with these markets. I like to hold the majority of this trend. And so depending on how the trend works and depending on the time frame, I'm going to have to kind of watch and see. But as of right now, these are going to be my 3 targets in which I'm actually going to be taking profits. Now I'm going to stick to this trading plan because I've learned in times past that if you vary your trading plan or you start to change things based off of emotions, you're going to lose out. And that's just the way it works. And so the best thing that you're going to be able to do is pick a specific price target. When price hits that target, you sell completely, and then that's it. There's no more stress, there's no more worry, and you're guaranteeing that you have those profits, because there's been too many times in times past when I'll create a trading plan and then I vary from that trading plan, I don't follow it, and then it follows my trading plan perfectly, only I get stopped out because I didn't stick to my original plan, or something else happens. Maybe I was in profit, didn't take profits at my target, and then I hold back down to break even or even a loss, because that's happened to me in times past. And so for this analysis, I want to talk to you guys about my updated trading plan. I wanted to go in depth with why I'm investing into XRP in this time. I wanted to give you guys my in-depth approach about the market cycle symmetry that I'm seeing between the two cycles. And really, it's this reason why I'm so confident in XRP. Now, really, as far as the next cycle, the coins that I'm most confident in moving forward would probably be XRP, Ethereum, and then Binance Coin. I think that you can't go wrong holding either 3 of those. They have a significant fundamental use case. That's not including Bitcoin, because obviously Bitcoin's probably the safest bet that you could ever even assume to invest in, because it's the driver of the value. But when it comes to altcoins, Ripple is a no-brainer in my opinion. You really cannot go wrong investing into this, especially with all of the active development that's continued to take place inside of the ecosystem. Now, what I've noticed from me talking about XRP more and more, especially now that we've actually sold through that 30-cent support floor and we're continuing to trend below support, and it's now acting as resistance, I'm getting a ton of hate from people. A lot of people are really married to the idea that XRP is the ultimate shitcoin. It's never going to go up. And the biggest reason for that is because, yes, it is centralized. Yes, the founders own the biggest majority of the supply of XRP. And I don't think that that's a problem, to be quite honest, because when you actually break down what Ripple is and the ecosystem around Ripple, it starts to actually make a lot of sense. I mean, really what they're doing is they're suppressing prices, and then they're accumulating it, and then they're pumping their coin, and then they're taking those profits, and then they're reinvesting that back into the ecosystem. And yeah, that could be viewed as shady, I guess, but for the most part, they're telling you what they're doing, and so it's for that while they're suppressing the prices, that's a good opportunity for you to be buying, because you know that it's going to pump at some point. Ripple has to make money off of their coin, and so the only way to do that is to pump it. And so I really do actually like the idea and the formula that Ripple is actually rocking with, where they're taking those profits from what they make off of XRP and they're reinvesting that back into their ecosystem. A lot of you guys can say that that's a scam, but to me, I think that that's just a really cool business model that a lot of future businesses are actually going to take part of doing. They're really a pioneer in their approach with this, and I think that that's why they're performing so well. And so in the time right now, during any bear market, especially with one that we've seen up to this point, I mean, we've sold off significantly. I bet we're down 94% from the all-time high. From the lowest point, we were down 94%. And so that is going to be the ultimate FUD coin. So something to keep a note of, guys. Out of the 100% of people that invest and trade in a financial market, only 10% of those will ever average a profitable return. And so whatever you hear on Twitter, whatever you hear on the news, whatever your friends are telling you, just understand, I can almost guarantee you that they're wrong and they don't know what they're talking about. Now, I'm not some trading god. I've told you guys that in times past. What I can say is I've been able to profit off of these market cycles, and I do have a pretty solid foundation about what I'm doing. And so it's for that reason that I'm just looking to maximize my potential inside of XRP. I see the market cycle playing out, and I see a great opportunity with a thriving business and a great business model, and so I'm going to maximize my opportunity with that. Now, a lot of people are going to hate on me for that. I've been getting tons of hate. Then the cool thing to do nowadays is to hate on XRP and anybody that talks about XRP, because it's continued to sell off and we really haven't had a sizable pump inside of this bear market yet, and that's totally fine. Out of all of the majors, this one's going to be the best risk-to-reward ratio that you're going to get. If you bought today, not financial advice, but if you bought today and held only to the all-time high, you're at about a 14x return. Now, go look at all of the majors and tell me a coin that can make you that much money just to all-time high. That's a top 10 market cap coin. Really, the only one that I can think of would be like Cardano or something. And so for me, XRP is a no-brainer. It's maintained relevancy in the top 10 throughout its entirety of being around. It's been one of the most parabolic coins. I really do trust in the business model of Ripple Labs and what they're doing with investing into XRP and selling those tokens to reinvest back into their ecosystem. And so it's for those reasons that I'm actually bullish on XRP. I wanted to give you guys this updated analysis so that you know exactly why I'm so bullish on this. I talk about this coin a lot, so I figured I'd dive in today and show you guys really what my reasonings for that were. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. If you found this video helpful, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more updates in the future. If you're looking for signals or you want to post analysis of your own and maybe even copy my own analysis, click the invitation link in the description of this video, and there you're going to get access to my Discord server. Thank you guys so much for the support. It really does mean a lot. With all that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.